Hey, juniors, how you doing? Today is Monday, January the 23rd, and let's take a look at what we've got going on today. Today, we're going to continue this idea of comparing texts. So last week we looked at a picture that represented what it was like for immigrants when they first arrived in the United States in New York City as they approached the Statue of Liberty. And then we read part of FDR's speech that was given at the Statue of Liberty on its 50th anniversary. And that would have been about 45 years after that picture was created. So, what we want to do today is we want to continue looking at how to critique and analyze text and put ourselves in a position where we can compare those texts to each other. And so, what we're going to do today is we're going to look at a couple speeches about immigration. We're going to work on a SOAPSTone analysis of one of them and then set ourselves up to do that comparison in class tomorrow. Okay? So, what we have here is I have pulled excerpts from two speeches. One of them was from President Obama in 2014. This was an address to the nation. This was a formal televised speech from the White House in which he spoke in prime time to the American people. This is a very formal setting. You will see, uh, this is a very traditional background when presidents come out and speak. This is, by the way, the same location where Obama came out and did his speech where he announced the killing of Osama bin Laden. The second excerpt is from former President Trump's speech that he gave in 2019. So this is about almost 5 years later. I think the Obama speech was in November. This one is in May, from 2014 to 2019. This is given in the Rose Garden. So this is outside. It's springtime in D.C. It's outside. He has a large delegation of people around him. And he speaks about what he sees as the problem in immigration. Both of these speeches were times when the president was announcing things that they wanted to accomplish to fix the immigration system, and what they saw as the problem and what they saw as solutions for that. Okay, so you will see here that we do have the full text of both speeches. We have the full video of both of their speeches. But then we were going to look at just like the excerpts of those speeches. Also, too, you will notice that there are the list of tone words and then your list of rhetorical devices. We've looked at that tone list before. The rhetorical devices we've kind of talked about, but I wanted to provide that list for you so that you could reference that as needed. Here is the excerpts that we'll be looking at. And so they sit side by side. Obama on the left, President Trump on the right. And they are just 2 pages each. Not even 2 pages, probably just over a page each, really, if you were to kind of shrink them down to 1 page. But we put them side by side. And then we're going to look at this SOAPSTone activity. Now, we did this SOAPSTone the other day. We talk about the speaker. What do we know about the speaker? The occasion, the audience. We look at the purpose of the speech. We look at the subject matter, the content, what was the message, and then the tone and how the speakers came across. In all of these, well, in the first set of these, we have 2 columns or 2 rows. We have the obvious, and then we have the second level. And so if you remember when we did the SOAPSTone Friday with the FDR speech, we talked about this is the obvious, right? Like we know the date, we know the speaker, we know, what the occasion was, we know who the audience was because there was people right there, right? We know that, but then we wanted to go that next layer. Like, what did we really know about this, right? Like, what is the backstory, the stuff that wasn't directly said, the inferences, right? We remember we talked about FDR, what we knew about FDR, but then also that he was pro-immigration and that his audience was people who were opposed to immigration, right? Like he was speaking to the people in front of him, but he wanted his message to reach another audience, that audience that didn't necessarily support immigration, okay? And so we want to take a look at the obvious and then kind of infer that second or next level information. So again, speaker, this is who is giving the speech, right? The occasion, not just when and where, but really about the why this was done. Why was this taken on? The audience, the obvious audience, who was the president speaking directly to, but then who was he hoping to reach? Who was he hoping would actually hear that message? And then the purpose, that is, again, why was this done? What was the goal, right? Like what was that president trying to accomplish? And again, there's the obvious, right? Like, I'm here to speak to you about blank, but what was he really trying to get to happen? The subject part here is where we would like for you to write a summary of the content of that speech in 3 to 4 sentences. Can you retell that speech? And again, if you think about that the way to think of a summary is that if you said, "Hey, I heard this really cool speech the other day," and you're like, "Oh, really? What'd they say?" That would be that retelling, right? Like, how would you retell that speech in 30, 45 seconds? And then finally, tone. How did this come across? Now, remember, we talked about the difference between tone and mood. Tone is how the author, or the speaker in this case, felt about the message, or felt about the content, or felt about what they were talking about, right? Like, what was their emotion? Okay. Happy, sad, angry, upset, hopeful, whatever, right? Then, if you remember, we have that list of words to kind of help you see a little bit deeper about what do those words really mean? What are you really trying to get across, right? And so if you look at that list, you might say, "Oh, they were sad." Well, what kind of sad were they, right? And then there's a whole list of different words of sadness. Okay. There also, in this, is those rhetorical devices. What kind of rhetorical devices were being used? Okay. So if you pull that list up, okay, so then we have a lot of these. Now, there's probably more of these than what you really need, right? And some of them are very fine details. But if you think about, like, hyperbole, like, were they really just overly exaggerating things? Or was there use of irony, some sort of irony, right? Were they using similes and symbolism or whatever, right? So this is where you really kind of pick apart the process by which that message was produced. Okay, so again, if you look at the assignment of what we have here, you have access to all of the materials. But after we read both speeches, you're going to pick one of them, not both, one of them, and it doesn't matter which one. And then you're going to do that SOAPSTone sheet on that particular speaker. Now, what's going to happen is then tomorrow we're going to go and we're going to compare these two texts, and we're going to find where they overlap and where they maybe diverge from each other. So if you have questions as you are working on that, please make sure that you reach out to Miss McGuire or I. And good luck, everybody.